Nancy, thank you so much for taking the time to help us celebrate Canada Day.
Oh, I'm very excited. Thanks for having me.
It is a different type of celebration this year. We can't all be together, and we all understand why and why we have to take these precautions. But I'm so glad that you could come on, and I just wanted to talk to you about you. Can you tell us, where were you born?
I was actually born in Don Mills, Ontario, on Barber Green Road is where we lived. And when I started in the entertainment industry, I used to bring people to Global TV. And it was right across the street from the first apartment I ever lived in. So it was always a little memory shaker when I went up there. We only stayed in Don Mills for about 2 years, and my dad's company, DuPont, was transferred to Montreal. So I ended up all my youth and teenage years in Montreal.
So you've had quite the experiences then. So are you fluent in French?
I speak Quebecois French, not Parisian French, but they understood me in Paris. So I was quite pleased.
Because I don't think they understood me in Paris, and I'm French Canadian, and I'm not completely fluent. My parents are, but they used to speak to me in French, and I would always answer them in English. I grew up in Ontario, so it was, all my relatives. We have a huge family, and they all speak French. But I would just always answer in English. But I do understand, which is nice too.
Beautiful language, just beautiful.
So, did you travel much through Canada? Can you tell me a little bit about your most memorable Canadian vacation?
Well, my most memorable was actually last year. I flew out to BC, to the Sunshine Coast, where my mom lives and all my relatives. And Mom and I got in the car and took a ferry up Haida Gwaii, up the beautiful, it's just so stunning. No man has ever touched on some of these points of land. And we ended up traveling to Prince Rupert and driving through northern BC and all down through the mountains. And it was visually stunning and so peaceful. And we even got caught just before an avalanche came down. So we had very exciting times on this trip, but to see the small towns in northern BC and meet the people, and what a wonderful, wonderful world it is. It's just so gorgeous.
It is. That sounds like a very memorable vacation, and one that you will cherish for quite some time, for sure. But I mean, the scenery in Canada, and for anybody who hasn't really done a lot of traveling in Canada, and of course, once we're through this pandemic or we're on the other side, I do encourage you to travel throughout Canada.
Absolutely.
But there are so many beautiful scenic places. I mean, I went out east last fall to visit my in-laws, and we were driving, and we were tandem driving, my son, my husband, and I, and we were all going through, and we were leaving, and we were just leaving from an overnight stay in New Brunswick, and we were on our way towards Canso, Nova Scotia, and the scenery in New Brunswick with the leaves changing and everything was phenomenal, even though they had just had such bad weather and like everything was blown up. It was beautiful. But my husband was so frustrated with us because we left so early in the morning. The three of us kept falling asleep, and I wanted to take pictures, and we were traveling along, and yeah, that was about it. So we missed all that scenic part, but we caught it on the way back through. So that was beautiful. So now you've worked as a publicist in the past, and you've worked with one specific Canadian icon, Gordon Lightfoot. Can you tell us what it was like to work with Gordon?
It was wonderful because obviously he's a professional, and some of the artists were just learning, shall we say, that I worked with. But Gordon got it. It was all about his audience and seeing them move through his music. And I remember one day, I believe it was up in Molson Park in Barrie. It wasn't SARS stock, it was a Live Aid, Canadian version. And I took Gordon from backstage into the audience. And to see the people literally bow down to him and just want to say hi and just want to be standing beside him. And he was like a kid. He loved it, absolutely loved it. And I remember when Neil Young came up to our tent to say hi to Gordon, and Neil was in awe of Gordon, so I have an actual funny story. This gives a huge insight. But I'm standing backstage with Neil and Gordon, and the TV cameras, we were live on all the TV cameras. And I get a phone call, and it's my mother. And she proceeds to tell me, your tattoos look terrible. I'm going through my most pivotal moment of my career, and mom has to get in there and have a word, you know. But I just laughed, and they were laughing. We thought it was pretty funny.
It's those moments that truly stand out, right? I mean, we
Absolutely.
those
Yeah.
moments, that, you know, that sounds like an amazing experience to begin with, let alone the comedy provided by your mom. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how long did you work with Gordon?
I worked with Gordon when he went to hospital. He actually woke up out of, I guess, coma, and had an album in his mind. So he would get the musicians in studio recording it, and he would do all the lyrics and everything from hospital. And it became the most gorgeous collection of his songs. And everyone thought he had passed away. So, I mean, we've had phone calls, I've had phone calls from journalists saying, I understand Gordon is passed. So I call Gordon, and he was in the dentist chair. So he says, I'm alive and healthy here. I'm doing fine. But he's just an incredible man. And I'm so honored to have worked with him.
Well, that is fantastic. I mean, and he's still touring now. Is he 82, I think? 80, around there? Yeah, 82. And he's still going. So
Still
good for
going.
him.
And always will.
Yeah, he is a true Canadian icon, and we all, you don't know that name, then you need to search it out if you're too young to know it, but definitely look up Gordon Lightfoot.
Absolutely.
Hear all his amazing music. Nancy, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and telling us a little bit about your experiences in Canada and these great stories. And together, I wish you a happy Canada Day.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to say I am so proud to be Canadian. We are so lucky here. And yes, of course, there's pending issues that come up all the time, especially in light of what is going on. But we are blessed to be here. We really are. Happy Canada Day.